The RRIP Part 2.
Nothing worse than seeing a grown man cry. Mr. Johnson on the edge of his bed, head in hands. I'm thinking, get a grip, grieve later. Told I'm cold that way. I call it a prerequisite of being good police. Crookshank is dealing with a son who seems less disturbed by his mother's death than his father. Finally, Mr. Johnson weeps out a few words. Apparently his wife got up at the usual time, went to the bathroom and took her morning meds. That dose of meds in the morning is enough to fill a bowl of cereal. Just add milk. After about 20 minutes passed, he went to check on her and found her passed out on the floor. It was then he called his son. Seems like a typical day to me at the old retirement home. Just as I was about to call Crookshank, I noticed the crime scene division were well at work. When I approached, I noticed a new lab rat going over the so-called crime scene. I introduced myself. Lieutenant Calhoun, you're new to CSD. What's your name? He stood up all proud. I'm Billy Rubin, crime scene division. Well, I tell you, I've had enough blood tests over the years to see the irony in that name. Well, Reuben, first off, would be great to act quickly so the coroner could remove the body and give poor Mr. Johnson here a break. Second, I need a quick assessment of the crime scene. Reuben looks at me, takes off his glasses, paused for a second. Well, Lieutenant Calhoun, the skull fracture was caused by the obvious fall to the floor, but I suspect homicide due to the fact that— Whoa there, Reuben. You don't have to take your glasses off to speak to me. Second of all, I'm the detective. I'll decide whether it's homicide or an accident. You stick to the forensics. Give me a blood test first, and let's see if it matches with the victim's meds, and then we'll take it from there. Back to the lab you'll go. Those kids watch too many crime scene shows. No lab rat's going to tell me how to do things in the field. All they do is collect evidence with tweezers and a swab. I finally make my way back to Crookshank with Mr. Johnson and his son Bob. I try to be understanding as I approached. What can you tell me, son? Well, he says, looking up, my dad called me in early and told me to get down here as soon as I could. Your mother's not doing well. So what was the situation when you got here, Bob? He stuttered out a few words and said, Mom was on the bathroom floor. Dad just sat there. So I called the nurse in. His name's Hank. He came right away, checked my mom, and called 911. Okay, son, that's fine. You just relax. Crookshank and I will get to the bottom of this. Again, it seems pretty cut and dry. Nothing more than an old person making their way off this rock. Hey, I might be home by noon after all. I motioned for Rob Crookshank to follow me out. Upon leaving, I noticed an odd piece of paper on the table. I looked over at Bob and said, Bob, there's one more thing. What's on that paper? Looks a little odd to me. Bob looks at me all stunned and says, Oh, yeah, that, detective. It's for a pool that I put together for my dad. It gives him something to do to occupy his time when my mother's out and about with the ladies here. That's interesting, Bob, I thought. I took another look at the paper and said, I hope it's a sports pool.